Next, we're going to look at naming angles. So in relation to geometry, there's a notation that we use for naming angles. First, we're going to look at naming angles in a figure. Naming angles in a figure is a little easier than naming something in something more complex. So if I go ahead and look at this triangle in example A, we'll note that I have a triangle and each vertex has a letter. So I have vertex A, vertex B, and vertex C. If I want to reference this angle here, I can reference this as angle. This is our symbol for angle. It's kind of our short notation. Angle A. If I want to reference this, I can reference this as angle B. And if I want to talk about this angle here, I reference this as angle C. So those are our three angles of our triangle. Now, there's nothing, when I just say angle A, I'm talking about the vertex along with those sides. When I say angle B, I'm talking about the vertex with those sides. Same with angle. Now, in part B, we have a pentagon. And again, I'm just dealing with this like closed figure, no extravagant lines. So I have a couple angles here. I have angle, I'm going to color code these. I have angle A. I have angle B. I have angle C. I have angle D. And I have angle E. In a figure, we can use one variable, and that variable that we use is the variable of the vertex. Now, if I look at something a little more complicated, where I have intersecting lines, I have lines with my figure, and so on, naming becomes a little more difficult. Not more difficult, but a little more complicated. So let's look at example A. I'm going to point out an angle here. I'm going to go with this angle right here, which is formed this section of these intersecting lines. If I want to name an angle here, it'd be really hard to call this angle O, because I don't know if we're referencing this angle here, the angle above, the angle on the left, or the angle on the bottom. So angle O, just using one variable of the vertex, is not going to be enough. So what we do is we are going to use all three points or variables that make angle. So we're going to involve A, we're going to involve O, and we're going to involve D. So this would be angle. Now here's the important part. The vertex will always be in the middle of my three angles. So I like to think about it as if I were to draw or trace the lines. So I'm going to go from point A to point O to point D. So I would label that angle AOD. So I use my angle symbol, the letters A, O, and D. This is like directions on which point to start at, where to go, and where to go from there. So A, O, D. I could also label this angle D, O, A. D, O, A. Noting that in both versions, my vertex is in the middle. Now, if I were to label this O, A, D, and I don't put that vertex in the middle, let's trace these letters in order. O, A, down to D. And we'll know that that's not even an angle. That's nothing that references this diagram. So this does not work. Let's take a look at another piece. So I'm going to label, let's do this angle here. This is made up from C O and A. C, O, and A. So we're going to say it C, O, and A. Trace it, C, O, A. That's the angle I'm talking about, so I've labeled it correctly. I could also go A, O, C. A, O, and C. Again, since this is the one vertex in the diagram, notice that every single label of an angle involves O in the middle. Looking at B, I have a bunch of points, so now it's even more important that I use this notation. Let's talk about this angle here. This is made up of the 3 points E, B, and F. Now if I put them in the order that I would trace to make the angle, F is my vertex, got to be in the middle, E, F, B. E, F, B. Or angle B, F, E. I can reverse. B, F, E. B, F, E. Making sure that F is in the middle. Now if I want to talk about this angle here, now my vertex is C. So I would say angle, C's in the middle, and I start at D, then I go to C, then I go to G. D, C, G. Or I could go G, C, D. Angle G, C, D. Now note, in these 4 angles, my vertex changed. Here it was F, here it's C. Little more complicated diagram, so I have to be a little careful there. All right, on the next, I want you to try these 2 on your own. So why don't you pause the video here and then come back to it. It says name the angle with the highlighted angle using 3 points. So let's do this angle here and this angle here. Why don't you pause now and try that. This would be angle AOC or COA, and this would be angle DOB. DOB. All right. Example 3, naming vertical and adjacent angles. So we're going to look at our relationships. Use the figure on the right. Name a pair of adjacent angles. So I have a bunch of options here. There's a bunch of different pairs. They just need to be right next to each other. So I'm going to choose this angle and this angle here. So my first angle, the green, and the side they share is AB. So I'm going to say angle FBA, FBA, and then angle CBA, angle CBA. Because they share a common side, we will see a matching of variables in the label. BA, BA. That's the side here that those 2 angles are sharing. Now if I want to name a pair of vertical angles, just a quick recap, vertical angles, intersecting lines on separate or across from each other. Do I have intersecting lines here? I do. I have this line here. I'm just going to trace it. And I have this line here. So the vertical angles again would be here and here. Those are across from each other at the intersection. ABF, ABF, that's one angle. And the other angle is DBC, DBC. And that would be a pair of vertical angles. Hopefully this helps with that notation and when we would need to use 3 variables to name an angle versus when we might use 1.